welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining in with me again on the YouTube channel Nzali Takes Africa. So, moving abroad will definitely change your life. But what I think most people don't talk about is, or what they don't tell you, is how much it's going to change you in the process. So that's what we're really going to talk about today. Like, was it actually worth it, 10 years ago, picking up everything and moving abroad, which is what I did. So, when I was in, I think it was like 2014. Yeah, it was 2014. I was a classroom teacher in Washington, D.C., who had transitioned out of the classroom and into nonprofit work, but I was still working with young people. And I was extremely burnt out, like extremely. We had long hours. Teaching is a very thankless job. um, it was rough. Like the schools and communities that I worked in were areas that, it's a lot. It's really, really challenging. Basically, like a lot of people, families are struggling with a lot of different issues, whether it be drug abuse, poverty, illnesses that they can't afford to get the right treatment for. It was just very, very heavy work. And so professionally, I was burnt out. I was just like, I love working with young people, but this is becoming too much. And eventually it started to trickle into like my personal life, my emotional well being, just like overall not being happy. I think I was the heaviest I had ever been. Not really in the best relationships, just overall not very happy. So that was happening in 2014, going into 2015. But I was in the process of healing, figuring out why do I feel this discontentment, all of that stuff. Like I was in the thick of that process because it had just become too much. And so through that process of figuring out why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling, it came to me that I really would like to move abroad. I had always wanted to travel abroad. I thought I would do it when I was in university, but I just didn't have the money. That's the honest truth. I did, attempt, and I was just like, wow, I can't afford it. So it was always something in my mind that was like, okay, yes, I'm going to travel abroad and see other things. It wasn't always on my mind that I would live abroad. But like I said, I was at my wit's end 2014, 2015. And so moving abroad seemed like a really good idea. So I expected, right? Because I first went abroad in the Peace Corps. So I was expecting like this total cultural immersion. Like I was going to speak the language and I was going to have a certain, just almost like fairy dust rose colored experience in South Africa. I did not expect to stay on the African continent as long as I have stayed, which has been a decade, right? But I was expecting to go and get this transformative, cultural, immersive experience. However, the reality of what my experience has been a combination of things, right? So there's been this like cultural connection, truthfully. So when I lived in South Africa, the communities that I lived in a place in Limpopo called Majozi. I also lived in Longsdale. um, and I also had my training site was in Mpumalanga in Moteti. So I did have that cultural experience, that cultural connection. My neighbors were great. I did learn some of the language. Um, yeah, so I felt like that happened. Then I moved to Ghana. Ghana is where I've spent the bulk of my time. And I would say 100% that yes, there was some cultural immersion. I was very integrated into Ghanaian society, so much so that I have citizenship, right? But at the same time, with the cultural immersion also came the loneliness sometimes. So, and when I say loneliness, it's more so of like, it's one thing to know people, and it's another thing for people to know you, right? So when I think about my friends that are in the US who have grown with me, who have been my friends for 15, 20 plus years, those people know me, right? Good, bad, ugly, indifferent, all of that. So sometimes the loneliness does kick in because you're like, am I having deep rooted connections with people? Um, and so that does happen, right? And then, you also have on one hand like this flexible lifestyle. I own and operate a virtual assistant agency called She Works Digital Africa. And we train and hire African virtual assistants and place them with US based clients. Right. So there's flexibility in my schedule. I can do that work from anywhere. Just this year alone, 2025, the first 5 months of the year, every month I was in another country, whether it be for personal matters or for just my own, luxury. So that flexibility was awesome. Like it has been awesome being able to pick up and go and not being tied to a particular place. But then there is the instability of distance, right? So like when I need to get back to the United States, that's far. It's a long flight that I need to take to get back. The cost of going back and forth, for those of you who know me personally or have been following me for a while, you know that my mother was sick for a few years from like 2022 until she recently passed earlier this year in 2025 in February, and the back and forth, right? So yeah, thankful and blessed that I have the flexibility, but also the demand that comes with being far away from your family and some of your nearest and dearest, loved ones, right? Then you have the pride of being able to start afresh, right? It is an ego stroke to be like, yeah, I started over and I did that thing, right? But nobody talks about on the flip side of that also like the exhaustion of the realities of going through those seasons of starting over and reintegrating yourself into another place, whether it be language, food, culture, whatever the case may be. So those are the truths, right? There's always two sides of a coin, and both of those sides of the coin have to be evaluated properly for me to answer the question like, was this worth it? You know, I've spent a decade away from my family and friends in the United States, meaning that I've missed tons of birthdays, tons of baby showers, I haven't missed any weddings, but baby showers, birthdays, family celebrations, graduations, all of those things. Homecomings. It was just Howard's homecoming, this weekend. And I'm there watching the videos and stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God, I miss Rebecca. Right. So at the end of the day, when I weigh it all together and I ask myself, was it worth it? And my response to that is absolutely 1000% yes. It was completely worth it because um it was worth it not because it has been easy, right? So like previously I mentioned some of the things that make it not easy, but it was worth it because it really helped me design who I am as a person. Like, if God took me out tomorrow, I'd be content with the life that I've created. And a big part of that life has been this decade that I've spent living abroad in Africa. And I desire that for everybody. Like growing up, I knew what people desired of me. I didn't know exactly what I desired for myself. So this last decade has really helped me define who is Nzali as a woman on her own, what she desires, what she likes, what she wants to do, you know, all those type of things. And that's what this time has really shown me. And not to get too like religious or spiritual or anything, but every major prophet, whether it be Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, whatever, they all have a period of isolation where they have an awakening. And I feel like this time that I've spent living abroad has definitely been that for me. So it was 100% worth it for me. Because again, I got to discover who I was as a woman, not in attachment to other people who had influence over me. And I think that that was a very powerful thing. And I pray and hope that for every woman to have that type of experience. Now, it may not look like 10 years abroad, right? It may look like a eat, pray, love vacation for 30 days. It may look like a sabbatical. It may look like childbirth, right? It may look like a whole bunch of different things, but for me, that's what it was. It was really having this time where I got to design my life. I got to make decisions for myself without the influence of anyone else, and made decisions based off things that felt good for me, right? Good, bad, or ugly, whether they were good decisions or not, I made them and I don't regret them because I made them for myself. And so, yes, this experience moving abroad was 1000%, 1,000,000% worth it. And I wouldn't change anything about it. All right. So, if you're thinking about moving abroad, please know that um, it won't fix your life, right? But it definitely will reshape your life. So, if you're a Black millennial woman and you're ready to live beyond the borders, and you want to stay rooted in your purpose, then I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Go ahead and like the video and share it with your family and friends, because this is the channel for you. And I will see you all on the next one. All righty, take care. Peace and love, y'all.